The dust never settled on Epsilon Eridani IV. It hung in the air like a perpetual haze, clinging to every surface of Outpost Sigma with a persistence that mirrored the colonists' own stubborn survival. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood camouflage, not just as a tactical strategy, but as a way of life. Her cybernetic eye flickered, its quantum-encrypted lens filtering through layers of environmental data that would appear nonsensical to any external scanning system. The outpost looked like a dying mining settlement, rusted prefab modules leaning at uncomfortable angles, solar collectors that appeared more like scrap metal than functional energy collectors, communication arrays that seemed one sandstorm away from total collapse. It was intentional. Every single detail was a carefully constructed lie. "Incoming Krithak scout," murmured Sergeant Marcus Chen from the antiquated-looking control station. His fingers danced across what appeared to be an obsolete control panel. In reality, a sophisticated quantum encryption hub that could shred any unauthorized scanning attempt. Elena's augmented eye tracked the approaching Krithak's reconnaissance drone. Its sleek obsidian surface contrasted sharply with the rust and decay of the outpost. Sophisticated sensor arrays extended like predatory tentacles, probing, searching, hungry for information. Little did they know, the colonists moved with a practiced casualness that betrayed years of covert training. A group of workers, seemingly exhausted miners with weathered suits and resigned postures, continued their apparent routine. One adjusted a malfunctioning oxygen recycler, another moved a stack of what looked like damaged equipment modules. Each movement was choreographed, each gesture a misdirection. The Krithaks had a reputation across the galaxy. They were conquerors, not explorers. Every species they encountered was categorized into two simple bins: potential resource or immediate threat. Humanity had spent decades cultivating the third option, something so unremarkable, so seemingly insignificant that the Krithaks would overlook them completely. "Drone is entering primary scanning range," Chen reported, his voice flat and controlled. A slight subharmonic in his tone, detectable only to those with specific augmentations, signaled full combat readiness. Elena's comm implant pulsed. A quantum-encrypted message from Central Command scrolled across her visual field. "Predator protocol initiated. Maintain cover." The message was more than an instruction. It was a promise. Her mind drifted momentarily to the generations of preparation that had led to this moment. Humanity's true history was nothing like the Galactic records suggested. What other species saw as technological limitations, they had transformed into the ultimate camouflage. The Krithak's drone completed its first passive scan. To its sophisticated systems, Outpost Sigma appeared to be exactly what it seemed: a failing human mining colony on the ass end of a marginally habitable planet. Minimal resources, minimal technology, minimal threat. Perfect. Elena watched the drone complete its sweep, her augmented eye capturing every microscopic detail of its sensor movement. The quantum-encrypted defense systems beneath the outpost's rusted panels began their silent preparation. Genetic markers in the colonists' blood started to activate, dormant adaptive systems that would transform ordinary humans into something far beyond what any galactic species could comprehend. "Scan complete," Chen announced. "They see exactly what we want them to see." A ghost of a smile crossed Elena's lips. The hunt was about to begin. The Krithaks would learn. Humanity was never the prey. Commander Vornak studied the holographic display of Outpost Sigma, his four-fingered hands moving with practiced precision. Decades of successful conquests had etched a permanent look of contempt into his iridescent exoskeleton. The Krithaks Confederation had conquered 17 distinct galactic civilizations, reduced countless species to resource extraction units. Humans would be no different. Preliminary scans confirm minimal defensive capabilities, Lieutenant Krax reported, her voice a low, resonant chirp that vibrated through the ship's command deck. Holographic projections flickered around them, each blue-tinted image representing a potential attack vector, potential resource extraction points, predicted human resistance patterns. They were beautiful in their mathematical precision, utterly wrong in every possible way. The first wave of Krithax dropships detached from the orbital carrier, their obsidian hulls cutting through the atmosphere of Epsilon Eridani IV like razor-sharp predators. Vornak had personally selected this invasion force, the 73rd Stellar Talon Squadron, veterans of 100 planetary subjugations. Each soldier was a genetic masterpiece, augmented with combat biomechanics that had made the Krithax the most feared military force in 3 galactic sectors. Initial landing zones are clear, Crox continued. No active defense systems detected. Structural integrity of human outposts suggests minimal resistance capability. Vornak's translator implant parsed the Krithax language into a cold, calculated stream of tactical observations. Decades of combat had transformed communication into pure strategic data. Emotion was inefficiency. Compassion was weakness. The first dropship touched down with a precision that spoke of centuries of planetary invasion protocols. Hydraulic systems hissed. Ablative armor panels shifted. 40 Krithax warriors moved with perfect synchronization, a living weapon system that had broken the backs of civilizations far more advanced than these humans. But something felt off. Sergeant Mroke, leading the first invasion squad, noticed it first. The silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of calculation. The human workers continued their apparent tasks with an unsettling calm. No panic. No resistance. No fear. Scanning for concealed weaponry, he subvocalized through the squadron's neural network. Each soldier's combat suit was a marvel of Krithax engineering. Quantum-locked armor that could deflect most known energy weapons, biosynchronous neural interfaces that processed tactical data faster than most species could blink. The first warning came as a subtle shift in their targeting systems, microscopic recalibrations that shouldn't have been possible, quantum entanglement interference that made no sense. Command, we're experiencing. Mroke's transmission cut mid-sentence. In the observation post, Elena Rodriguez watched and waited. Vornak's hand hovered over the tactical interface. Something was wrong. His centuries of combat experience screamed a warning his rational mind couldn't yet comprehend. These humans were not behaving like any species they had ever encountered. The Krithax had a system, the perfect, mathematically derived system of planetary conquest that had never failed. First, psychological destabilization. Then, targeted infrastructure destruction. Finally, complete subjugation. Humanity was about to teach them that systems could be broken. The first Krithax soldier to die didn't even realize he was dead. One moment he was scanning a seemingly abandoned mining module. The next, nothing. No warning. No dramatic explosion. Just absence. Tactical anomaly, Crox reported, her voice losing its previous confidence. Multiple squad members experiencing communication disruption. Vornak's translator implant suddenly flickered. For the first time in his career, he felt something dangerous. Something that in a lesser commander might have been called fear. Curiosity. The invasion of Outpost Sigma was proceeding exactly as planned. Just not according to the Krithax's plan. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. The hunt was about to begin. The transformation began at the cellular level. Dr. Amara O'Keefe watched from the reinforced observation bunker, her augmented eyes tracking the microscopic changes coursing through the colonists' bodies. What looked like ordinary miners were anything but ordinary. Each human carried a genetic legacy millions of years in the making, a carefully engineered system of adaptive potential that would redefine the very concept of biological warfare. The first Krithax soldier didn't comprehend what was happening until it was too late. Private Jakta of the 73rd Stellar Talon Squadron was scanning a seemingly abandoned processing module when the first change occurred. A colonist, a middle-aged woman who moments ago had been adjusting a rusted oxygen recycler, simply shifted. Her skin wasn't just hardening. It was transforming. Microscopic nano-adaptive layers emerged from beneath what appeared to be ordinary human skin. Dermal plates configured themselves with a speed and precision that defied every known biological principle. What looked like simple overalls became an integrated combat system, quantum-locked molecular structures responding to threat matrices that existed beyond traditional electromagnetic spectrums. Tactical anomaly. Jacta's neural implant chirped, but the warning came milliseconds too late. The woman, no, the weapons system, moved with a calculation that transcended human or Krithak's understanding. Each movement was a mathematical equation solved in real time. Adaptive combat algorithms that had been dormant for generations now activated with surgical precision. In the command bunker, Elena Rodriguez was the orchestra conductor of destruction. Genetic cascade at 78% activation. Sergeant Chen reported, his fingers dancing across interfaces that looked antiquated, but were anything but. Quantum adaptive matrices are stabilizing. Around the outpost, the colonists underwent their transformation. Mining equipment became weapons. Seemingly random structural modules reconfigured themselves into defensive positions. The entire outpost was alive. A living, breathing combat organism that had been waiting, watching, preparing. Vornak's tactical display began to break down. Red warning indicators multiplied faster than his system could process. Squad after squad of Krithak soldiers found their most advanced targeting systems becoming useless. Weapons that could punch through battleship hulls suddenly encountered adaptive molecular structures that shifted and reformed faster than light could track. Dr. O'Keefe's research had been more than a scientific pursuit. It was a species-level survival strategy. Humanity had spent centuries studying every known galactic species, not just their technology, but their fundamental biological and psychological weaknesses. The Krithaks believed in genetic perfection through selective augmentation. Humans understood something far more profound. True adaptation was about potential, not predetermined design. Biomechanical integration at 92%, Chen muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The colonists were no longer just humans. They were living weapons systems that could think, adapt, and evolve in real time. Every Krithak's attack was immediately analyzed, understood, and countered before it could fully manifest. Jacta watched in horror as his entire combat squad was systematically dismantled not by superior firepower, but by an adaptive intelligence that seemed to predict their every move. A mining laser became a precision cutting tool. A maintenance drone transformed into a swarm of molecular-level disruptors. This was not technology. This was evolution in motion. Central Command. Vornak's transmission crackled with something approaching emotion. A rare breach for a Krithak's commander. We are encountering unprecedented. His transmission cut off. In the observation bunker, Elena Rodriguez completed the next phase of the plan. The Krithaks had come expecting a simple resource extraction. They would leave understanding a fundamental truth about humanity. We are not who you think we are. We have always been the apex predator, and the hunt was just beginning. The human weapon was information. Lieutenant Marcus Chen operated from what appeared to be a decrepit communications hub. In reality, the most sophisticated cognitive warfare center in human history. His fingers danced across quantum-encrypted interfaces that looked like antiquated control panels, each touch releasing cascading waves of disinformation that would shatter the Krithaks' most fundamental combat doctrines. Cognitive warfare was humanity's true art of war. Initiating neural network cascade. Chen subvocalized, his augmented throat microphones converting the command into a multi-layered communication protocol that would simultaneously exist and not exist across multiple quantum states. The Krithaks communication network began to fracture. At first, the changes were subtle. A patrol unit receiving conflicting coordinates, a squadron commander getting phantom transmission signatures from non-existent units. Each manipulation was a precise surgical strike against the Krithaks' most fundamental strength, their collective neural network. The Krithaks believed in absolute communication, total information control. Their entire military doctrine relied on instantaneous, perfectly synchronized tactical intelligence. They had conquered 17 civilizations by moving as a single, perfect organism of war. Humanity was about to teach them the art of doubt. In the primary Krthax command ship, Lieutenant Crox first noticed the anomalies. Tactical overlays began to shimmer and shift. Unit markers appeared and disappeared. Communication channels filled with white noise that contained microscopic packets of weaponized information, each fragment designed to create maximum psychological dissonance. Command, detecting multiple simultaneous transmission vectors. Crox reported, her neural implants working overtime to filter the incoming data storm. Unable to verify primary communication protocols. Vornak's response was immediate. Isolate and analyze. But isolation was impossible. The human attack wasn't just technological. It was a comprehensive assault on perception itself. Chen watched the cognitive warfare unfold like a master composer. Each transmission was a note in a symphony of strategic deception. A Krthax patrol would receive orders to advance. Milliseconds later, another transmission would suggest total retreat. Another would indicate an entirely different objective. The neural networks began to fracture, each soldier questioning not just their orders, but the very nature of their collective intelligence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood something profound about warfare that the Krthax had never comprehended. War was not about destruction. It was about breaking the enemy's ability to perceive reality. The Krthax had a fatal weakness. Their collective neural network, which had been their greatest strength, became their most significant vulnerability. Humanity had spent decades studying their communication protocols, their psychological triggers, their fundamental belief systems. A Krthax soldier named Mrok experienced the psychological warfare most directly. His neural implants began to feed him impossible scenarios. A transmission suggested his entire squadron had been compromised. Another implied a massive human counterattack in a completely different sector. Each piece of information was designed to create maximum cognitive dissonance. Tactical integrity compromised, his system warned. But what did tactical integrity even mean anymore? The beauty of human psychological warfare was its organic nature. Unlike the rigid Krthax systems, these attacks evolved in real time. They weren't just pre-programmed algorithms. They were living, breathing cognitive constructs that could adapt instantaneously. In the command ship, Vornak watched his perfect invasion dissolve. Full communication blackout, he ordered. But blackout was impossible. The human attack had transformed their own communication network into a weapon of total psychological destruction. Chen allowed himself the slightest smile. The Krthax believed in absolute control. Humanity understood something far more profound. True power existed in the ability to create uncertainty. Cognitive cascade at 94% effectiveness, he reported to Rodriguez. The invasion was falling apart. Not through force, through perception. Humanity's true weapon had always been its ability to understand, and then deconstruct, the enemy's fundamental assumptions about reality itself. Dr. Amara Okik stood at the intersection of evolution and warfare. Her laboratory, hidden beneath the seemingly mundane outpost, was a testament to humanity's most profound secret. This wasn't just a research facility. It was the crucible where the next stage of human potential was being forged. Genetic cascade reaching critical threshold, she murmured, her augmented eyes tracking microscopic changes that would redefine the very concept of biological adaptation. The Krthax believed in predetermined genetic optimization. They had spent millennia crafting their species through selective augmentation, creating what they considered the perfect combat organism. Humanity understood something far more revolutionary. True adaptation was about potential, not predetermined design. Each human colonist was a living experiment, not just a soldier, but a dynamic ecosystem of adaptive potential. On the battlefield, this philosophy manifested in ways the Krthax could not comprehend. A soldier wounded by a Krthax plasma weapon would not just heal. Their entire biological system would begin instantaneous reconfiguration. Cellular structures would analyze the weapon's energy signature, begin developing adaptive countermeasures at the molecular level. Sergeant Marcus Chen demonstrated this perfectly. The Krithax energy weapon had caught his left shoulder, a hit that would have vaporized any other species. Instead, Chen's biomechanical systems began an instantaneous, multi-layered response. Nano-adaptive layers reconfigured, genetic markers shifted. What should have been a fatal wound became a tactical opportunity. Adaptive response at 87% efficiency, his neural implant reported. Vornak watched in mounting horror. The Krithax had conquered 17 distinct civilizations. Their combat doctrine was mathematical perfection. Every possible variable calculated. Every potential resistance mapped and neutralized. Humanity broke every single one of their mathematical models. Dr. O'Keefe's research went beyond simple genetic modification. She had unlocked something fundamental about human potential, the ability to not just adapt, but to fundamentally reimagine biological potential in real time. A Krithax scout unit approached what appeared to be a damaged human defensive position. Their tactical overlay suggested minimal resistance. Standard conquest protocols indicated a quick neutralization. They never saw the transformation coming. The damaged defensive position was alive. Not metaphorically, literally. Molecular structures that looked like simple metal and ceramic began to reconfigure. What appeared to be damaged equipment became a living, thinking defensive system that could analyze, predict, and counter Krithax attack vectors faster than the aliens could process information. Biological-technological integration reaching quantum stability, O'Keefe reported to Rodriguez. Elena Rodriguez understood the true nature of their strategy. This wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about demonstrating a fundamental truth about humanity's potential. We are not who you think we are. Each human colonist carried millions of years of evolutionary potential, genetic markers that had been dormant, waiting. Not just physical adaptations, but cognitive expansions that could rewrite the very understanding of biological potential. The Krithax communication network began to fracture. Their perfect, mathematically derived combat models began to break down. Each human interaction was a variable they could not predict. Each moment introduced complexity that defied their understanding of biological systems. A Krithax biomechanical specialist would later describe the human adaptation as a living algorithm that rewrites itself in real time. But that was merely a technical description. What was happening was far more profound. Humanity was demonstrating that evolution was not a fixed path. It was potential. Constant, dynamic, unpredictable potential. Vornak received reports that defied every computational model in the Krithax tactical archives. Wounded human soldiers who should have been neutralized were becoming more dangerous. Damaged equipment that should have been inert was transforming into complex defensive systems. "This is impossible," he subvocalized to his command team. But impossible was a limitation of imagination, and humanity had never been limited by other species' imagination. Dr. O'Keefe watched the battlefield data stream, a slight smile crossing her face. "We are not just adapting," she thought. "We are becoming." The information spread faster than light, faster than thought, faster than comprehension. The Galactic Communication Nexus, a vast network of quantum-entangled communication relays, began to pulse with something unprecedented. Not just data, not just information, but a fundamental reshaping of collective understanding. Ambassador Trillax of the Syndicate Worlds watched the transmission from Epsilon Eridani IV with a growing sense of existential dread. The Krithax Invasion Force, a military machine that had conquered 17 distinct civilizations, was being systematically dismantled by a species everyone had categorized as a minor, technologically insignificant civilization. "Impossible," he whispered, though no one was listening. The broadcast wasn't a traditional communication. It was a multi-layered information cascade that simultaneously existed across multiple communication spectrums. Academic databases, military communication channels, diplomatic networks. Each layer revealed something different, yet part of a comprehensive whole. Humans had not just defeated the Krithaks. They had deconstructed them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the power of narrative. This wasn't just a military victory. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic perception. Each transmission was carefully crafted, a surgical strike of information that would reshape how every species understood humanity. The first layer showed tactical data, bare, mathematical precision that demonstrated how human adaptive systems had neutralized the most advanced military force in the known galaxy. But it was more than numbers. It was a demonstration of a fundamental approach to existence that defied every known galactic paradigm. Quantum communication specialists would later describe the human broadcast as a living algorithm, an information system that could adapt, reshape, and communicate in ways that transcended traditional understanding. On 100 different worlds, military strategists began to reassess everything they thought they knew about human potential. The Krithaks communication network, once a perfect, mathematically derived system of total information control, began to fragment. Not through external attack, but through the introduction of a fundamental uncertainty that their systems could not process. Ambassador Trillax watched as diplomatic channels lit up. The Syndicate world's communication matrices began to buzz with transmissions, each more urgent than the last. "This changes everything," a Zarnka military analyst reported. "Humanity is not what we believed." But that was an understatement of cosmic proportions. The broadcast revealed layers of human potential that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't just about military capability. It was a fundamental demonstration of a species that could adapt, reimagine, and transform at levels that challenged the very concept of biological and technological limitation. Dr. Amara O'Keefe had prepared for this moment her entire career. Each transmission carried genetic research data that would force every xenobiological institution to fundamentally reconsider their understanding of evolutionary potential. Humanity wasn't just showing its capabilities. They were providing a blueprint of a new way of understanding biological systems. "We are not who you think we are," the transmission seemed to say. Not through words, but through pure, unfiltered demonstration. The Krithaks invasion of Epsilon Eridani IV was becoming something far more profound. It was a moment of galactic revelation. Military databases across multiple civilizations began to update. Academic research networks pulsed with new information. Diplomatic channels became a storm of recalculation and reassessment. Vornak, the Krithaks commander who had led the invasion, became something unexpected. Not just a defeated military leader, but a living testament to humanity's capabilities. His capture was not a moment of triumph, but a continued demonstration of human potential. "We could have destroyed you completely," Elena Rodriguez had told him. "But that's not who we are." Those words would echo across multiple communication networks, carrying a weight far beyond their simple phonetic structure. The galactic communication nexus continued to pulse, each transmission a reminder, each data point a challenge to everything that had come before. Humanity was not just a species. We were a living, breathing algorithm of potential. And the galaxy would never be the same. The counterattack was not about destruction. It was about demonstration. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the HSS Prometheus, a vessel that looked like nothing the Krithaks had ever encountered. Its design defied every known principle of spacecraft engineering. Adaptive hull structures that could reconfigure in milliseconds, quantum communication systems that existed in multiple states simultaneously, a living weapon that was more organic ecosystem than traditional starship. Target acquisition complete, Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with living intelligence. The Krithaks had a 100-system empire, a civilization built on centuries of conquest, mathematical precision, and absolute information control. Humanity was about to deconstruct it with surgical precision. Their strategy was beautiful in its complexity. This wasn't traditional warfare. This was a comprehensive dismantling of an entire civilization's infrastructure, belief systems, and technological foundations. Each strike was a carefully calculated message, not just a military action, but a philosophical statement about the nature of technological potential. The first wave targeted communication infrastructure. Krithak's quantum relay stations, the backbone of their interstellar communication network, began to experience cascading system failures, not through brute force attacks, but through adaptive information algorithms that essentially rewrote their fundamental operational parameters. Entire communication networks collapsed not through destruction, but through the introduction of fundamental uncertainty. Dr. Amara O'Keefe watched the tactical displays, her augmented eyes tracking microscopic changes in galactic power structures. This was more than a military campaign. This was a comprehensive restructuring of technological potential. Adaptive response protocols at 96% efficiency, she murmured. On 100 different Krithak's colony worlds, critical infrastructure began to experience simultaneous, cascading failures. Power grids, defense systems, communication networks. Each failure was a precision strike, not of physical destruction, but of systemic deconstruction. The Krithak's military doctrine had always been about absolute control. Perfect mathematical models, predetermined response protocols. Humanity introduced the one variable they could not calculate: unpredictability. Vornak watched from his containment facility, no longer a prisoner, but a living data point in humanity's comprehensive analysis. The humans had not just defeated the Krithaks. They were systematically demonstrating the fundamental flaws in their entire civilizational approach. "We could have destroyed you completely," Rodriguez had told him, "but that's not who we are." Those words carried more weight than any weapon. Each strategic strike was a message, not just to the Krithaks, but to every civilization watching. Humanity was not interested in conquest. They were interested in demonstrating a fundamental truth about technological and biological potential. The HSS Prometheus moved through Krithak space like a living algorithm. Its adaptive hull could reconfigure faster than targeting systems could lock. Its communication systems existed in quantum states that defied traditional understanding. Lieutenant Chen tracked the systematic deconstruction with a sense of clinical precision. "Critical infrastructure targets neutralized," he reported. "Zero physical casualties. Complete systemic disruption." This was warfare reimagined, not as physical destruction, but as a comprehensive restructuring of systemic potential. Dr. O'Keefe understood the deeper implications. Each strike was not just a military action. It was a comprehensive xenobiological demonstration, a living proof of humanity's fundamental approach to existence: adaptive, dynamic, unpredictable. The Krithak's military database began to fragment, not through external attack, but through the introduction of fundamental uncertainty. Their perfect, mathematically derived combat models began to collapse under the weight of human potential. Diplomatic channels across multiple galactic civilizations lit up. This was more than a military victory. This was a fundamental restructuring of understanding. "Humanity is not what we believed," became the universal transmission. As the HSS Prometheus completed its strategic evolution, Commander Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. "We are not who you think we are. We are potential. Unbound. Unpredictable. Unstoppable." In the aftermath, the galactic power structures crumbled and reformed. Diplomatic envoys approached human representatives with a mixture of terror and reluctant respect. The Krithak's confederation was reduced to a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when a predator doesn't recognize a superior hunter. Epilogue. Vornak, the sole surviving Krithak's commander, sat in a human observation facility. A human psychologist studied him, her cybernetic eye gleaming with an intelligence that was both compassionate and utterly alien. "We could have destroyed you completely," she said softly. "But that's not who we are." Vornak understood then the most terrifying truth of all. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, its adaptability, or its ferocity. It was choice.